Well, I got back to New York in the lowest and worst state I had ever been in my entire life. And with time on my hand, and totally frustrated, no way out anymore, incapable of getting the answer, I cried out for the answer and I couldn't get it. And it broke my heart in the form of a heart attack. After the heart attack, I was told not to take a step unless I absolutely had to, because there was a possibility that I'd drop dead at any moment. Of course, this was a terrible, shocking thing, having been so active all my life and suddenly being told that I cannot be active anymore. It's a horrible thing. And also that intense fear of dying overwhelmed me, that I might drop dead any minute. And this stayed with me for days. There's a real horrible, low, spinning period there, being in the intense grip of fear of dying, of being a cripple for the rest of my life, and that I wouldn't be able to be active. How could I take care of me? And all that. And after several days of that, I says, well, so one thing I can do is, still alive, try to get out of it somehow. Maybe there's a way out. And with the extreme desperation of wanting out, not wanting to die, I began to question, what the hell is it all about? And began to review, well, what is life? I must start from scratch. I must put all this aside. And I began to look, see. What am I? What is this world? What's my relationship to it? What do I want from it? Happiness. What is happiness? Being loved. Then I thought of all these girls who wanted to marry me. These beautiful, charming, intellectual girls. And that right now I have not only these girls, not only girls wanting to marry me, but I do have the esteem of my friends. And yet I'm miserable. The closest thing I sensed as related to happiness was love. So I began reviewing and reliving my past love affairs, looking at the points where the happiness, the little happiness that I had, were. And all of a sudden I got an inkling that it was when I was loving them that I had the highest feeling. I began to dissect and pull up and dissect all my high moments of loving. I remembered one evening, beautiful, balmy evening in the mountains when I was camping with Virginia. We were both lying on the grass, both looking up at the sky. And I had my arm around her, under her head. And the nirvana, the perfection of the height of happiness, was right there. And I was feeling how great is love for Virginia. How wonderful is knowing all this nature. How perfect a setting. And I saw that it was my loving her that was the cause of this happiness. And so I immediately turned to the other side. Well, when she loved me, it was great. And I sensed it was not as great as what I just discovered. And I remember the moments when, publicly, this beautiful, charming girl told the public that she approves of Lester. She loves Lester. And I could feel that nice feeling of approval. But it was not a lasting feeling. It was just for that moment. And in order to get that feeling, she had to continue saying that. And that this momentary ego approval was not as great as that former feeling of loving her. Because as long as I was loving her, I was feeling so happy. But when she loved me, it was only moments of approval that gave me the happiness that it did. When I saw that it was not being loved that was making me happy, I went into it further, and I knew it was connected with that kind of thing, the happiness that I was having. And I kept digging into it, and I discovered that I was loving when I was feeling good. Or that when I was loving, I felt good. And pulled up other incidents to prove to me that this was so, and I saw it. That when I was loving, I was happy. Oh, when I saw that my happiness was determined by my capacity to love, I said, wow, I've got a handle on this thing. I got my hand onto the chain of happiness, onto a link of it, and I pulled out 1 or 2 or 3 links. And I decided I'm going to pull on that chain until I get the whole thing out. Get the entire chain. And I kept reviewing incidents from the past, and where I saw that I was not loving, I would change that feeling to loving that person. Instead of wanting them to do something for me, I would change it from my wanting to do something for them. Things like that I did. It was the first inkling I had as to what brings about happiness. And it was a tremendous thing because I hadn't had happiness. And I said, gee, if this is the key to happiness, I've got the greatest. And even the hopes of getting more and more of happiness was a tremendous thing at the time, because this is what I thought was the number thing that I wanted, happiness. Unfortunately, most people are like I was. Most people want love and never feel as though they have it. Only because in order to feel love, you must love. This is a tremendous door opener to happiness. And as I said, unfortunately, most people don't see it, and even when they hear it, don't try to test it out to see whether it is so. If they would try it out, they would discover that their happiness depends upon their loving. And that the more they love, the happier they are. Period. Love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. You see, these kids are saying, if you love me, you do it my way. That's the trouble with the world. But what I saw was the more I loved, the happier I was. That's how I discovered it equates. Later on, when I began to move into people again, I used that to further develop my love. Having discovered that I was getting happier and happier, I wanted all of it that I could get. I wanted the ultimate happiness. So when I mixed with people, again and again, when they did things that I didn't like, and within me was a feeling of non-love, I immediately would change that attitude to one of loving them, even though they were opposing me. Until I got to the point where, no matter how much I was being opposed, no matter how much they defiled me and tried to rend me asunder, I could maintain a feeling of love for them. My extreme heaviness was becoming less. I felt myself becoming lighter. In fact, happier. There was a certain greater freedom I felt. There was an easier concentration of my mind because of it. And I began to look better at my mind. What is my mind? What is intelligence? And suddenly a picture flashed of an amusement park bumper car entertainment thing, where all the cars got their energy from a screen wire above. And this screen wire symbolized all intelligence, all energy. And that each driver of the car was taking the amount of energy and intelligence that he wanted from that wire, but steering his car blindly because he was bumping into other cars and bumping and bumping. And that if I chose to, I could take more and more of that overall intelligence. And so I dug at that. I began to examine thinking and its relationship to what was happening. And it was revealed that what was happening had a thought behind it at some time prior. And that I never before related the two because of the element of time between the thought and the happening. But I did discover that all that was happening to me did have a thought in that direction at some time prior. And then all of a sudden I realized that everything that was happening to me had a thought of it before it happened. And that if I could grab a hold of this, I could consciously determine everything that was happening to me. And above all, I was responsible for everything that had happened to me. Formerly thinking that the world was abusing me. And I saw that my whole past life and a tremendous effort to make money, and in the end, failing, was due only to my thinking. That I was seeking happiness, and I was seeking it in making money. And whenever the business started to make money, I began to lose interest, because the money did not bring me the happiness I was wanting. And because it didn't, and I lost interest, the thing collapsed. And I had always blamed others and other things for the business collapsing. And here it was simply my subconsciously knowing that this is not the happiness thing that caused me to lose interest in it, that caused the business to collapse. When I lost the planing mill and everything, I remembered that when I closed it down, there was a feeling, oh, this tremendous effort, I hope I never go through this again. It was such an extreme effort to make that business pay with the extreme odds against it. It just took all my effort, energy, and time right around the clock to get it going under such heavy, difficult obstacles. So that when it collapsed, I had the thought, gee, I hope I never come back to this. But when I did come back in several months and found every building stripped, every piece of equipment gone, I said, oh, those son of a guns, they did it to me. But they'll suffer for it, because this was the only industry in that small town of Magdalena. Ha, 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 how stupid they are. They undid the possibility of this thing ever starting up again, and run away with a little satisfaction in that. But I did think that they did it to me, that the market did it to me, that others were the cause for it, until this realization that it wasn't money making that I wanted, it was happiness. And that when the money was coming in, the happiness was not there. Oh, this was a tremendous piece of freedom, to think that I am not the victim of this world, that it lies within my power to arrange the world the way I want it to be. That rather than being an effect of it, I can now be a cause over it, arrange it the way I would like it to be. And that was a tremendous realization, a tremendous feeling of freedom, a realization that money did not give me happiness. Making money did not give it to me. Had me thinking and looking at others, and I saw how all my friends and all the rich men, when they made the money, they never stopped and relaxed to enjoy it. But they began to drive themselves more and more to get more and more of it. That what they had couldn't satisfy them. And here they are going after more of it. It made no sense. There was no happiness in getting money. I saw the world madly in the wrong direction. So, my need and want to make this money was let go of. I also saw that the more we had of things, the bigger my business was, the more responsibility I had, and the more it had me day and night, right around the clock. The problems of business I would take to bed with me, and I would wake up in the morning with them, and even carry them through the night in the dreams. I realized that I didn't have these big operations, that they had me. Discovering that my happiness equated to my loving. Discovering that my thinking was the cause of things happening to me in my life gave me more and more freedom. Freedom from unconscious compulsions that I had to work, I had to make money, I had to have girls. Freedom in the feeling that I am now able to determine my destiny. I am now able to control my world. I am now able to arrange my environment to suit me. And lightened my internal burden so strongly that I felt there was no need that I had to do anything. Plus, this happiness was so great. It was a new experience for me. I was experiencing a joy that I never knew existed, never dreamed could be so great. And if this is so great, I'm not going to let go of this until I carry it all the way. I had no idea how far it could go. I had no idea on how joyous a person could be. So I began digging further on how to extend this joy. I further began changing my attitudes on love. I would imagine the girl that I wanted most marrying my friend or the boy I would want her to marry least, and then enjoy their enjoying each other. To me, this would be the extreme in loving, and if I could achieve it, it would give me more of this wonderful thing that I was discovering. And so I worked on it. And I took a particular fellow, at that time Burl. I took a particular fellow and a particular girl, and I wouldn't let go until I could really feel the joy of their enjoying each other. Then I knew I had it, or almost had it. Then, later on, I had further tested this in talking to people who were opposing me no end. And I was trying to help them. And I would consciously feel the greatest of love for them when they were attacking me. And it was so wonderful. I would, without any thought, thank them so profusely for having given me the opportunity of talking with them. And it threw them into a dither and question. But I really felt that. I thanked them from the bottom of my heart for having given me the opportunity of loving them when they were making it as difficult as they possibly could. I didn't express that to them. I just thanked them profusely from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity. of having been able to talk with them. Then I knew I had it. It was the love of a Christ. Contemplating the source of intelligence and energy, I discovered that it too was available. In unlimited amounts, and that it came simply by my freeing myself from all these former compulsions, inhibitions, entanglements, hang-ups, that I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to be subject to anything. Seeing this allowed this power that was right behind my mind to flow through like it was never flowing through before. I saw that I had dammed up this energy, this power. And all I had to do was pry loose the logs of the dam, and that's what I was doing. I'm discovering these things. I was removing a log and allowing this infinite flow, just like a water dam would flow if you just pulled the logs out one by one. And the more logs you pull out, the greater the flow. And that was all I needed to do, was to remove these logs and let the infinite power and energy flow. And there were times when I get this realization of what I am that would put so much energy into me, I would just jump up in the air from my chair. I would go right straight out the front door. I would start walking and walking and walking for hours at a time, and sometimes for days at a time. I just felt as though my body could not contain it, that I had to walk or run some of it off. I remember walking the streets of New York City, wee hours in the morning sometimes, just walking at a very good pace. Not being able to do anything otherwise, I had to expend some of that energy. It was so tremendous. And as I said, I would not stop until I could see the end of the line on this happiness. And I would go higher and higher and higher and say, oh my gosh, there can be nothing higher than this. But I would try, and I would go higher. I'd say, oh, there can't be anything higher than this. But I would try and go higher, and say, oh, there can't be anything happier than this, until I realized there is no limit to it. I would get incapacitated. I could look at my body and I couldn't move it. I was so top-heavy with ecstasy and joy. I was actually incapacitated. I would do this for hours, going higher and higher, and then I would have to work for hours to keep coming down and down and down until I could start being the body again in order to operate it.